Now, back to the story. When checking the lock on my bedroom window, I stole a glance outside at my street. My apartment building has no attached parking garage, so the streets outside were lined with cars at all hours of the day and night. I've become familiar with my neighbors' cars to the point where I can recognize when one of them is missing. It's for this reason that I picked up on the unfamiliar Cherokee XJ across the street. The dark blue car, which I initially mistook for my neighbor's Zoo Trooper, blended in well with its surroundings despite it being an unusual model. I don't think I would have noticed at all if it hadn't been for the events of the day, not left me so paranoid. I didn't see anyone inside, and it wasn't as though there was anything I could do about it. So I just closed my shutters and focused on the task at hand. At 10:45, I sat down at my desk with nothing but a woman's name and what I believed to be the name of a website. For a full hour, I poked around on the web to no avail. I started off with searches like Angelica arm puncture wound video and Angelica white room doves, and then tried more detailed queries. I searched around increasingly obscure forums dedicated to all manners of topics, from body horror art to grotesque auto portrait photography. Several drinks later, it occurred to me that I might be conducting my investigation in the wrong place, more specifically on the wrong layer of the web. I hadn't wanted to confront the notion previously, but there was a chance that Angelica was producing some kind of self-harm fetish content, and if that were the case, I wasn't sure how much I'd find out about her content on the surface web. Since I don't want anyone reading this to go on search for the website, I'm not going to get into the details of my search. I will say, though, that once I got onto Dread, it wasn't nearly as hard to find as I thought. By midnight, I had found what I was looking for. The website's homepage was minimalistic, white text on a pure black background. It had a heading, Doves, and a subheading, 3 friends creating exclusive content with love. Beneath were 3 names that let me know I was in the right place. Angelica, Mary, Adam. I steeled myself and began to click on Angelica. This portion of the site was a single, sprawling page that seemed to scroll for miles. Up at the top was a message, supposedly written by the woman herself. Angelica, 18, durable, I love my fans. No longer accepting commissions. Price varies on a per video, per photo set basis. Click title for duration, thumbnail, price, info. Videos before 1/14/23 do not have audio. No refunds. Beneath the introductory text was a subheading that read free sample. And beneath that was an embedded video, 2 minutes in duration. I pressed play. The video bumped for a long while, then began. It faded from black into a familiar shot. In the same white room, I'd seen the customer's picture where she stood. She, Angelica, looked awful. Far worse than she looked in the photograph. Her jaw clenched and unclenched strangely, and her eyes were wide and darting like a wild animal's. There was a giant, half-healed gash in her cheek, and her left arm was covered in bandages, perhaps suggesting that this video was filmed after the customer's photo was taken. The woman wearing my face gave the camera an uncertain smile. She held up her hand, showing her palm, then turning it around to show the back, then slowly sat her hand palm down on the wooden table below her. The camera tilted downwards, following her hand in such a way that it indicated another person was filming with a handheld. The camera lingered on her hand for a moment. I heard someone inhale, and then a hammer came down on the woman's hand. After the blow, the camera jerked back up to her face. She started making this pained moaning sound. Her mouth twisted as I saw tears welling in her eyes. The camera moved back down to her hand, where a deep bruise was already welling up under her skin. I paused the video here to scroll down, reading through the myriad of titles listed beneath it. The most recent link was called Blunt Force 33, followed by Blunt Force 32, Puncture 12, Eye Infection, Needles Under Skin. I felt dizzy. I had to stand up and pace around the room to keep from puking my guts out. Maybe I should have stopped here, but for whatever reason, I felt like I had the responsibility to finish this. I pressed play once more. Down again came the hammer, this time landing atop the knuckle of her forefinger with a crack. 4 more blows rained down on the hand, 1 for each knuckle. By the end, the sounds coming from the woman didn't seem entirely human. It didn't sound like me, but it was hard to tell. I'd never been in that kind of pain before. I didn't know what I'd sound like. In the last few seconds of the video, the camera was raised and angled downward, such that you could see both Angelica's face and mangled hand. The shot gave the viewer a better view of her chest and small spade-shaped birthmark a few inches from her from beneath her clavicle, and it was this too familiar mark that removed any lingering ambiguity about what I was watching. Angelica was no coincidence, no circumstantial doppelganger. She was a deepfake of me. When the video ended, I sat staring at the final frame until my laptop went to sleep, too shocked to do anything else. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I still can't. I've done everything right. All my life, I've kept my socials private and generally minded my own business. I stayed modest, low profile, and out of the spotlight for all of my young adulthood. I never sent nudes to my ex-boyfriend despite his insistence because I was afraid of what would happen to them if we ever had a nasty breakup. As it turned out, we did have a messy breakup. In the immediate aftermath of that video, as I racked my memory for answers, I couldn't help but think of my ex. If I were a public figure, then the culprit behind the deepfakes could have been anyone. But for a nobody like me, it had to be someone close, someone with access to my private photos. The thought made me shudder. Could my ex really have taken things that far? Did he actually hate me that much? I had a sudden urge to call him and demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't get me far. It would be easy enough for him to lie if he was the culprit, and then he would know I was onto him. There was much left for me to explore on the Dove's website, but after my discovery, I wasn't in the right state of mind to keep investigating. I thought about calling someone, maybe Lydia or my parents, but for some reason, the thought of doing so filled me with a tremendous embarrassment. Even though I knew deep down it wasn't my fault, I couldn't help but feel ashamed of the videos, even if I had no role in their creation. I needed sleep, but knew it would be nearly impossible. So I popped a few sleeping pills and crossed my fingers. After tossing and turning in bed for a few minutes, I got up to use the bathroom, which required walking down and past the hallway from my front door. When I got to said door, I stopped, noticing a strange shadow coming from the hallway. It looked as though someone had placed an object right outside my door. I walked closer to look, about to crouch to peek under the door when the shadowy figure moved. It hadn't been an object at all, but rather a person standing in front of my door. I heard their footsteps thudding down the carpeted hallway. By the time I looked through the peephole, it was too late to see anyone, and I certainly wasn't about to open the door to look for them. I immediately suspected it had something to do with the blue Cherokee, which was still parked across the street when I stole a glance out the window. Suddenly, I had no desire to sleep anymore, but the pills were already doing their job. I wanted to stay alert in case whatever was outside my door returned, but fighting against the drowsiness was like trying to outrun a monster in a nightmare. The last thing I imagined before I slipped into unconsciousness was my own face smiling jubilantly as the hammer smashed my hand into a bloody pulp. End. Woo! Hey! Yeah, I had to break this one up, but hey, I hope you like this one. Anyway, catch you on the next one.